Okay, we'll start with this. Jaron Ennis is unsure of making 147 pounds again, even for a Teofimo Lopez fight.
Can't say I'm surprised.
Yokohama, Japan. Jaron Ennis is considering a move up to junior middle despite a lucrative offer to face Teofimo Lopez. Ennis is coming off of a career-best win performance against a Montestanionis, stopping the Lithuanian to unify the IBF and WBA welterweight titles. It is no secret that Ennis struggles to make 147, and there had been talk of a move up to junior middle prior to the contest with Stanionis. Ennis decided to stick around at welterweight in order to add more belts to his collection, but after successfully unifying the division against Stanionis, it is unlikely he will add a third 147-pound title anytime soon. The WBO champion Brian Norman Jr. is facing Jin Sasaki, and Mario Barrios is fighting Manny Pacquiao. There were talks regarding Ennis facing WBO junior welterweight champion Lopez, but Hearn wonders how wise it would be to try and make 147 again for such a contest. I think the big question is whether or not Boots stays at 147. If I'm honest, Hearn told BoxingScene.com, the Stanionis performance was great. The kind of medical stats weren't as great, but it's difficult because I think Boots feels like he's going to perform so much better at 154. The reason that he wanted to stay there originally was to unify, and now he's done it. It's a tough decision. We like the Teofimo Lopez fight, but I think if he stays at 147, he'll fight Teofimo, and if he doesn't, obviously you'll see him move up to 154, with Brian Norman fighting in July out there in Japan, and Barrios fighting Pacquiao. The unifications aren't really there.
Many times have you heard me say that before?
Boots is a bit of a one-off. Really, he continued. I say he's not money motivated, of course he is, but he's all about the legacy, and he's prepared to do that to his body to make 147, but for the unification. So the Teo fight is a little bit different, but it's a big fight, so we'll have to make a decision soon. Ennis hired a nutritionist in an aide to help him make the weight more efficiently for his bout with Stanionis. Ennis looked huge on fight night.
Far bigger than Stanionis and dominated him. However, Hearn revealed that making the weight was still a struggle. It was probably not as bad as the Karen Chukadzian fight, but I think a lot of people point out during the week how tight he looks at the weight, he said. It wasn't like he was dead on the scales for Stanionis, not at all, but it's a massive ask to keep repeatedly bringing himself down to 147. The bane of today's boxing landscape is that Boots isn't doing anything at 147
that Zurdo Ramirez, David Benavidez, and Callum Smith weren't already doing at 168.
That Lawrence Okolie wasn't already doing at cruiser. That these practices are widespread and are currently the industry standard.
Everybody's doing it, Boots included, so I wouldn't pigeonhole him specifically by saying that he's a weight bully, only that you can do this for a while, but eventually it catches up. It always catches up. So it's not the advantage it's made out to be.
It's only temporary.
And it's not just can you make it, it's can you make it and perform at your best. And I think he feels, even in the Stanionis fight, that wasn't his best, most powerful version of himself, which is quite bizarre because I thought it was unbelievable. But this is what you're going to get from him at 154. And in those weights, you're going to get someone with a lot more power, even more than he's got at 147. I can believe that. You have to time a move upstairs properly, because if you don't, and you stay at a weight too long, You end up like Benavidez-Haney.
No chin, no power.
You end up like Jarrett Hurd. Staying at 154 too long did irreparable damage that carried over at 160.
The caveat is that the optics are bad. You're deciding to leave the welterweight division now that you're being offered a Teofimo Lopez fight so that Teo and his fans can turn around and say that you're ducking him. Which may not even be the case, but in today's era of clickbait and knee-jerk reactions, people just need a narrative to run with. That'll be enough for the content creators to make 10 or 12 videos about it.
I think the hyperbole has finally caught up to Boots in the sense that he was pegged to be the successor to Terence Crawford, but so far, he just seems to be walking away from big fight after big fight. You didn't want to fight with Virgil at 154. Now you're walking away from a fight with Teofimo at 147.
To go to 154.
So the only thing he can do now to silence the boo birds and silence the critics is get to 154 and fight somebody good. Fight somebody dangerous. That could be Virgil Ortiz. That could be Bakram Murtazaliev. But you can't get up there and stay on easy street because Boots has never been in a fight with someone that was a credible threat to him.
Got a lot of hype on Showtime for pouncing on guys he's supposed to be able to beat.
Chris Van Heerden, Sergey Lipinets, Thomas Dulorme.
Got a lot of hype on Showtime for pouncing on guys he's supposed to be able to beat.
So now people are expecting a bit more from you, and you have the opportunity to give it to them, but it's at a time where you've outgrown welterweight. Just doesn't look good. Teofimo has already taken to his social media and said Jaron Ennis has declined to fight against I for his WBA, IBF, and Ring Magazine championship titles in a welterweight division, aka 147. His Excellency Turkey LL Sheikh is upset with this, as Eddie Hearn agreed to the fight for later this year. With that being said, I'm not sure if I want to continue being a professional boxer, since everybody together holding hands like their life savings depend on it. What a shame. Make boxing great again.
So what do you guys think? Do you categorize this as an according to Hoyle duck? Is that what Boots just did? Did he just duck Teofimo Lopez? Or are his reasons valid?
Veteran boxing scribe Marcos Villegas reacted to Lopez's post by saying, "What do you make of all of this? I know I heard Boots didn't want to fight in Riyadh, but not sure what was the reason." My previous video, we talked about the potentiality of Boots moving up from the Brian Norman perspective, that if Boots moves up, that might bring Brian closer to a Lopez fight.
But that's not the only fight that can happen for Teofimo in the absence of Jaron Ennis.
There is also a Benavidez-Haney fight. Benavidez-Haney's right there at welterweight alongside Teofimo, another little guy that moved up.
Bitch!
Benavidez-Haney has called for a fight with Teofimo. Said, I'm tired of your racist remarks. I want to fight you. I want to see Haney Teofimo more than I want to see Teofimo Boots.
I don't want to see Ryan and Haney again. I want to see Haney and Teofimo. That's the fight that I want now. After watching that night, I was like, yep, that's the fight I want next. I want Teo and Haney. I think they've got plenty of history. I think stylistically it can be a fun fight. I think the build-up will be fantastic. Yeah, make that fight.
The pros. Benavidez-Haney and Teofimo Lopez have a lot more history, a lot more backstory
Bad blood.
than Teofimo and Boots.
The cons. Benavidez-Haney is a runner. Benavidez-Haney fights like a bitch. He's still cosplaying a 36-year-old Floyd Mayweather in his heyday, doing his best imitation of him.
Still on the dick!
Who wants to see that? Behind the performance that he just put on with Jose Ramirez in Times Square, who wants to see Benavidez-Haney versus Teofimo?
Well, Dan Canobio does, and Chris Algieri. They are proponents of the fight. Aesthetically, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think that Haney versus Lopez plays out a lot like Haney versus Prograis, with the difference being that Teofimo is a younger, fresher fighter than Regis Prograis was when he fought Devin.
So what that means is Teofimo is a little faster on his feet and a little quicker to the draw. His reflexes are fresher than Regis Prograis was, but stylistically...
Well, styles, it's the same fight. Boxer puncher versus pure boxer. Stylistically, this is the same fight as that one, just with a younger guy.
And because Teo's younger, that could make the fight a bit more arduous, a bit more difficult for Devin.
I don't think Teofimo really wants it, even in the absence of Jaron Ennis, if for no other reason than he's gonna have to chase Devin all night. And who wants that? But if you're Devin, you want that fight. See, this is the fight that could help make people forget about the Ramirez fight and the ass-kicking you took last year against Ryan. If you beat up racist Fimo,
that might get you back in the fans' good graces. If you can make that guy eat his words. Do it for the culture.
The caveat is Devin has no real leverage to get that fight. And is it a fight that Turkey El Sheikh wants to make? He was just trying to make Boots versus Lopez. Would he swap that out for this?
The culture.
Now, if you're Teofimo Lopez and Boots is leaving the division, you're not really that interested in Devin, what's the alternative then? Who do you fight?
Culture.
Ryan Garcia is supposed to be having surgery on his hand. Not that fighting Ryan means anything at this point. It doesn't. Rolo is waiting for Manny Pacquiao.
Culture.
Brian Norman wants to fight you. Brian Norman wants to take you on after the Jin Sasaki fight. But a Brian Norman fight, I think, is a lot more dangerous than a Devin Haney fight.
Culture.
So, if you're Teofimo Lopez and this is the lay of the land, what do you do and who do you fight?
At 147. Or does he elect to stay at 140?
Unify that division? Maybe you fight the winner of Puello versus Matias?
Maybe you fight the winner of Hitcherson Richens versus George Cambodia? You never got your lick back from George.
I don't know. Being honest with you, though, I don't care either. I'm not all that enthused about Devin or Teofimo, or even a fight between them. These kids are so boring. So much posturing and posing, so much talking, so much social media. It just goes on. But in a word, Lopez versus Haney, at least right now, based on what's going on and who's available and who isn't, well, Devin might be the biggest fight on the table for Teofimo right now.
And if anybody can satisfy the financial demands of both the fighters, because they've got quite a few, it would be Turkey, now wouldn't it?
Now it's time for another episode of Ring IQ Hate Mail, where disgruntled boxing fans leave me nasty comments in the comment section of my videos.
In my previous video, I talked about Canelo Alvarez's win over Sergey Kovalev that saw Canelo become a 4-weight world champion, as Sergey Kovalev was WBO champion at the time.
And how I felt Canelo doesn't get enough credit for that victory because he went up there and knocked the champion out in what was his 4th weight class. To that, Frankie Cianzez 9808 said, people also forget Kova was almost stopped by Yard, only had a 6-week camp, and fought Frodnello with a rehydration clause. Say all the facts, gentlemen.
To which I responded, there was no rehydration clause. Buddy McGirt himself, who was training Sergey at the time, said as much.
The whole bit about there being a rehydration clause in that fight was a narrative cooked up by content creators. Buddy McGirt killed that narrative a long time ago.
Benavidez fans are still trying to prop it up.
That's what Frankie's doing. Frankie, who responded by saying, okay, was it the best Kova?
Well, did David Benavidez fight the best Vazdik?
That you're so impressed with that guy. Fun tidbit. The Sergey Kovalev that Canelo Alvarez fought was actually younger than the Alexander Vazdik that David fought. And Sergey was a champion when Canelo fought him. A reigning champion, whereas Vazdik was not. David fought him, and David fought him. He was a quasi-retired fighter on the bounce.
So, you're impressed with David beating that version of Vazdik, but you're hypercritical of Canelo
beating that version of Kova?
Hypocrite!
Funniest part is that version of Sergey Kovalev that you're criticizing would easily be the best name on David Benavidez's paper-thin resume.
Because he, at least, was a world champion, as opposed to having a title emailed to you and becoming a champion that way. Is that supposed to be better?
Another fun tidbit. Canelo's knocked out more people at light heavyweight than David. Callum Smith's knocked out more people at light heavyweight than David, but David's supposed to be the one that's a monster. Speaking of Callum Smith and his potential fight with David Benavidez, in my previous video I talked about what you gotta look out for, because it's not a guarantee that they fight. There may be conversations happening in the background, but those aren't the only ones.
To that, a disgruntled customer that goes by the name Eleazar Alvarado said, man's yapping, and look who's gonna fight David versus Smith by the end of this week. It's gonna be made. I understand people have their opinions, but you're just straight hating like a diva.
That's what all the young kids say whenever you say something they might not like, even if it doesn't pertain to them. Oh, you're just hating. As if that's supposed to be some sort of a trump card?
Is that supposed to mean something to me? Because it doesn't.
He didn't like I was pointing out the reasons why the fight might not happen. And because Eli Dorito didn't like that, I know he's not gonna like this. See, he left this comment yesterday, but earlier today, via Ring Magazine, Callum Smith versus Anthony Yarde is still in the works and could take place this summer. The Ring understands this is despite Frank Warren coming out and saying that plans for a Matchroom versus Queensberry tournament 5 versus 5 like the last one have been shelved, but these two fighters might still fight. And what have I been saying the whole time?
That these two fighters might still fight.
We know that ever since Turki El Sheikh's entry into the boxing space and bringing everybody together, Frank and Eddie have been getting along famously. It's so much easier now for them to do business with each other, and because they both dominate the UK market, it makes a lot of sense for them to do fights with each other. Fights like this one.
That doesn't guarantee that this fight will happen. There are no guarantees until the fight is announced. Really, there are no guarantees until both guys are in the ring. But it's a possibility you have to entertain, and because I entertained it, this little butterball got mad.
Yeah.
So what do you want I should do? Announce Smith versus Benavidez prematurely? Just take that upon myself because that's what you want to hear.
This can't be music to your ears, because if Callum and Anthony end up fighting each other, they're not fighting David Benavidez. And what is David gonna do? David, who insists he's a Vegas fighter and he wants to headline his own pay-per-views, but with who?
You know, that's his biggest problem. He wants to main event his own pay-per-views in a division that's not teeming with Americans, in a division where he doesn't have a ton of options.
The PBC ain't got the bodies. The only relevant fighters in today's light heavyweight division are international fighters that are spread across different promotional outfits. So you can't stay an island. I know when I say this, I may as well be speaking Chinese to this idiot.
He's basically guaranteeing that Benavidez versus Smith will be announced by the end of the week. Hey, we'll see.
I'm not in the business of counting my chickens before they're hatched, even if you are. But if this week comes and goes, and that fight don't get announced,
There's mud in your eye.
and at a time where a Yarde fight is said to be in the works by Ring Magazine, that is owned by Turki El Sheikh, by the way, who's likely the financier,
There's mud in your eye.
seems like Eli Alvarado is set to look quite the fool. But you know, you really can't make a stupid person feel stupid. You can make them look stupid.
To other people, intelligent ones that realize how intelligent they're not.
But Eli himself doesn't really know how stupid he is. It takes for us to tell him. Stupid people like to loiter, hang around smart people, so that they can in turn feel smart themselves. Because this guy complains a lot, but simultaneously, he comes here a lot.
What is he, stupid?
Yes, we've established that. Complaining that I'm mulling over all the factors as to why Smith versus Benavidez might not happen, to where, if that bothers you, well, then you shouldn't keep coming here now, should you?
This is not a pro-David Benavidez channel. There are many out there that are, and perhaps you would be better suited going to them.
Though even if it were, even if I were the biggest David Benavidez fan on this side of the country, it really wouldn't change his circumstances. He's up the creek without a paddle. Limited options in a division that is not dominated by Americans, and he himself does not represent such a great financial value that he can bottleneck all the talent and force them to come to him.
No, all the real money in the light heavyweight division is international. I've been saying it in video after video. How many times are you gonna have to hear it before you understand it?
Guy's stupid. He can't be helped.